porn is almost like this kind of, it's this really kind of like hyperbolic like form of media which just exaggerates every bit of sex that you kind of do. So everything is like come on face, everything is like hard pounding, which in reality, like none of this stuff actually, or it rarely happens, should I say, in normal sex.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to 30 Years and Running. I'll be your host, Christian, and each week my friends and I will be looking at life seen through the eyes of 30-somethings. Whether it's things like dating, social media, or mental health, we'll be looking at the past, present, and future of being in your 30s.
I did a story basically where I was asking people for their weirdest sexual experience. Wild, fam.
Wow.
Not even wow, wild.
Okay.
Wild, some of the entries were... do you know what? Some of the entries that we got that didn't even make it to... that I didn't even repost in the story were... they were pretty out there, to be honest.
Yeah.
One of them in particular stands out is someone... like a girl... she had like long acrylics, basically. And a guy... wanted her to finger his bum.
Right.
And basically, I don't know what happened. Well, I kind of know what happened, but she was fingering his bum and made him bleed. So when she looked down at her hand, it was just like covered in blood.
No.
So that was a fun one.
Yeah.
And then another one was...
I can imagine. Yeah. It's fun to do these things. You've got to like be prepared and think it through though. That's all. I don't think you can just go shoving an acrylic at someone's bum.
Agreed. So there was that one, and then another one which was just a lot more creepy where a guy basically... this girl was sleeping with a guy and he couldn't finish during sex. So they ended up going to bed, and basically when she was sleeping, she awoke to this guy like wanking off over her.
Yeah, no, that's not...
Yeah. And finished off on the sheets. When she was sleeping underneath him as well.
That's a really interesting sort of topic in itself about like what's okay while the other pets... Because in one hand you might be like, oh, you know, they started to have sex, he couldn't finish, and also a wank is something personal that we all do, and sometimes you do with a partner as part of playing things. But if the other person's asleep and you're wanking over them, like for me, that's sort of, it is rapey. It's not rapey. Like a penetrative rape, but that for me, that is real.
That is rapey. Imagine
waking up and having like I'd be mortified. You were not part of that experience. You were never asked if you wanted to be part of that experience, and yet here's this man jizzing over you. It's just absolutely not acceptable.
No, that's not okay in any sense.
Not okay.
In any sense. I don't know at what point that guy was like, you know what would be a good idea?
That's the thing.
Let me jack off over this girl while she sleeps. She's not even aware of me doing this.
No, in the bin, that man.
He did it, and the fucked up thing is, he did it twice during the night as well. Yeah.
Did she feel that she could say anything, or was she just pretend to be asleep and get it over with and then leave in the morning?
So I don't know if she heard or she saw it, but she obviously was conscious of it.
Right.
And she just pretended to go to sleep, I guess, or to pretend to be sleeping. Sorry. So yeah, she was like aware of it the whole time, twice as well throughout the night. So,
sex offender.
Yeah, it was all grim. So basically, all that kind of stuff didn't even make it, and that was on the cutting.
Right, cutting room floor, ready for the outtake. Yeah, that's triggering.
But that was a good episode actually.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's probably quite a nice segue into today's topic. So, welcome to 30 Years and Running. I have got man like Becks back on the sofa.
Hello. Hi again.
Yeah.
How are good. How are we? We're all right.
Good. So, we were just talking about the sex episode that we did quite recently, actually, and almost as kind of a spiritual successor to that. We're gonna talk about porn today.
Yes.
It's kind of hard to know where to start with this, but I guess the obvious place to start is: do you watch porn?
Do I watch porn? I have done. Yes. I wouldn't say it's a regular thing for me, but I have watched it both on my own and in the context of a relationship as a kind of, let's watch something together kind of vibe.
Is that like a regular thing that you used to do, or is it just like one-off special occasion?
It was a one-off special occasion.
Valentine's Day.
I think, so for me, this... I've only done this with one partner, and it was a good few years ago, and in a way maybe it was a little bit telling. It was a kind of a let's spice up the relationship a little bit and do something really different. It came about for a funny story in that he used to work from home, And one day I come home, he'd gone out, he used to go to the gym loads, he was out at the gym, and I just thought, this is back when, you watched a DVD or a Blu-ray as part of like a regular.
Yeah.
So I was like, while he's out, I'll watch this film.
Yeah.
Ejected the DVD, and what did I find? well, you ask.
Yeah, I
actually can't. Do you know what the annoying thing is? I should have prepped me for this story because I would have remembered what the title was. But basically, it was a play on Antony and Cleopatra, and it was basically this Egyptian themed.
It's definitely like Antony, like Cleopatra or something
Antony
like that.
Cleopatra or something like that, and Bony Cleopatra or something
dumb,
something like this. But it was basically an Egyptian themed porn that I obviously, having seen the picture of this DVD like that was printed on it, I was like, I have to witness.
Wait, hold on. Was this your DVD or was it his?
It was his. It was his. I had no knowledge that this DVD. We were living together at the time,
like,
so this
exotic porn days.
Well, exactly, and so I had no idea that this. I suppose maybe because I was a bit younger, I was a bit more naive, and I obviously knew that he must have watched porn in his past, but I did not know that he had any porn DVDs in the house. So to find this one just left randomly in the player.
You're also showing your age by talking about DVDs.
Mate,
as well.
I know, you know it. You know, anyone who's heard me on this before knows I'm the old woman of the group. But yeah, so anyway, obviously I actually wasn't upset about it. I know maybe some people might have had some feelings on it, but I actually was more just, I found it quite funny and I was intrigued. So I did press play on it and watched a few scenes, and it was, as exactly you might imagine, just, very like sexy, very revealing, and this queen getting boned by all these different Antonys, and it was quite funny.
Was it like, do you remember, again, this is showing our age, but like, or showing my age, should I say, but do you remember on Channel 5 on like a Friday, I think about 11 o'clock onwards, that was, back in the day, like, this is pre-internet, this is the only time that you could potentially watch porn on TV,
right,
if you didn't have cable.
It was more like a soft porn though. It's like I know what you mean. It's like an erotica
like
rather than full on.
You obviously wouldn't see like the dick going into the puss, but
no,
you
sure.
But it was like hardcore basically compared to
just snogging that you might see in a Hollywood film. Kind
yeah,
of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I remember that was, I think that was my first experience of porn, is kind of watching those things. And we used to have cable as well, so we we used to have like, it was like Television X, I think, back in the day. I don't know if they still do it, but
I do remember exactly, and I remember it was Eurotrash that was on the Channel 4 or Channel 5, whatever it was. Where again, it was all those different sort of segments, and some of it was silly and funny and whatever. But those were the ones where you had, women with the most plastic surgery in the world, biggest boobs in the world,
Lola
and they'd
Ferrara.
interview.
I've seen that episode. I remember that on Eurotrash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. But it was very much of that vibe. And then basically what happened was I obviously realised he must have been watching this at home while I was at work and he was working from home. Like, I mean, what a lunch break, honestly.
Yeah. That's a hell of a lunch break, to be fair.
But yeah, I asked he came home and I asked him about it, like not in a confrontational way because I wasn't cross or sad or anything like this. But I just said I found this in the DVD player, and bless him, he was mortified actually. But I did say, you don't have to be ashamed and embarrassed. Maybe we could watch it together. And so that started a bit of a.
He must have been like. Ding, 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 ding,
well,
winner,
you say
winner,
that,
winner.
But actually, funny enough, I do think that porn is such an area of fantasy that actually, when you do try and bring it into real life. That in a way makes it a bit weird. And basically, like, we did have fun the few times that we did watch it together, but it wasn't something that flew in a relationship. Basically, we did it a few times for a bit of a laugh, and because I wanted to make it okay that he watched porn and just say you don't have to be ashamed of what you get up to when I'm not around. That's all fine and all of this. But that's one of the more memorable times that I've watched it with a partner.
Yeah, I mean, I've never watched it with a partner before. I'll be honest, I've never really thought to watch it with a partner for some reason. I think for me, like, I don't know about you, but I tend to kind of get tunnel vision when it comes to like sex. So like everything else just becomes a bit secondary. So I feel like porn, if I put on porn, like I just wouldn't even kind of focus on it, to be honest.
You feel like you'd watch the porn or wouldn't?
No, I feel like
pay attention to the porn.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay attention to the porn. Because, like I say, everything apart from the actual sex itself is kind of secondary.
Yeah.
But I see the benefits of it because, like you say, it's a bit of a fantasy thing. And if anything, it just helps to, well, I guess for some people, it just helps to, like, almost kind of bolster kind of what you're doing in terms of the sex itself. But I think you kind of touched on, like, an interesting point there in terms of it's a bit of a fantasy, right? And a lot of the times... And I think us guys in particular are quite naive to it. Like, and we talked about on the sex episode in terms of things like coming in the girl's face, which you see a lot of in porn, like in reality, you know, that doesn't really happen a lot, and girls actually don't like that, funny enough.
Yeah.
So porn is almost like this kind of, it's this really kind of like hyperbolic, like form of media, which just exaggerates every bit of sex that you kind of do. So everything is like come on face, everything is like hard pounding, which in reality, like none of this stuff actually, or it rarely happens, should I say, in normal sex.
I guess the thing is though, I don't know, and just I think it can do, but that just depends on people's individual taste. And as long as everyone's consensual about what it is that you're going to do, people do enjoy like quite hardcore acts, or they do enjoy the dressing up, or they do enjoy all this other kind of kink and sex that is represented in porn. So as long as you're on the same page about what you want to do in real life, and if that is separate from the fantasy world that you watch in porn, and as long as you can actually separate those two and don't go accidentally confusing things, then it's fine what people want to watch and that. So.
Yeah, exactly. But I think us guys get twisted that. Well, I remember when I was younger anyway, and one of your first introductions into sex is porn, and so. A lot of the stuff that I learned in the beginning was from porn, and porn kind of teaches you, you know, the harder you kind of pound, like the more the woman will scream and the more she'll enjoy it. Obviously, when you get older, you realise that's not actually true. But then also, like another thing that I learned, and this sounds really grim, is that you kind of learn like the mechanics of sex as well, in terms of like literally like, you know, what you're actually doing, which hole to go in and stuff.
What you're meant to be doing.
I know it sounds like an obvious point, but for me, like, you don't really kind of know the mechanics of a woman. And when you first have sex, like I say, your only introduction to it is porn. So in a weird way, like porn, I've kind of got like a mixed relationship with porn in that sense, because on the one side, it's actually kind of taught me a couple of useful things, to be fair. But then on the flip side, it's taught me some stuff which is obviously, like I say, really hyperbolic and not true, and if anything, is quite degrading to women, to be honest. So yeah, mixed relationship with porn, I'd say.
So is that true of you? Is that how you kind of learned about sex, through porn and hearing about porn? Because I suppose that's the other thing I was going to say about, to ask you as a young man, as a boy, when you first watched porn yourself, but also that playground kind of chat, because presumably there were other boys in your class or boys that you knew who had watched porn and then told you about it, and then you have that playground kind of chat about porn. Sometimes before you've even seen it yourself, and sometimes how that playground chat is how you first learn about sex.
Yeah, definitely, because you obviously get sex ed at school, but it doesn't really kind of teach you about the mechanics of sex. It talks about safety and things like that, which is fine, and I kind of get that. But in terms of getting down to the nitty gritty, my main kind of source of information was porn. And in different kind of guises, we've talked about porn on this podcast. Some of it good, some of it not so good. But like for me, again, I think it's got its merits, but there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm not so keen on. And I think as I've gotten older, basically, you start seeing it for what it is, which is just, it's pure entertainment. But you don't understand. I definitely didn't understand that when I was kind of younger. Like you assume that it's real, but it's just pure entertainment. Everything's kind of glorified. Everything's a bit over the top. But yeah, when you actually get down to sex, you realise, oh, actually, girls don't like coming at the face, or girls actually don't scream when you like try and go 1,000 miles an hour. Actually, if you try and put it in their bum, which I haven't done,
not without asking, not without
exactly.
consent. That's the important thing about all of this. It's like you can do it. Essentially, I think people can do whatever you want, and I think there's a really good place for porn in society, in relationships, and all of this. But it's just so important to just talk about consent and what you want to do and what you'd like to 100%. Do, and what, as you say, is reality and what's not. So put it in there if you want, but ask the question. Ask first, and make sure that you're just completely in agreement. That's all.
Can I dive in there actually? Can I dip in there? So yeah, it's a funny one for me, I think. Do you know? Can you remember the first time you watched porn?
Not specifically. I think definitely it was probably at uni, because obviously I lived at home with my parents beforehand. Yeah, definitely. I would never have because again, this is before having a smartphone where you could just access content without having to go through like the family computer. So I never looked at porn before I had my own own internet connection and things.
In terms of like in terms of your friends, sorry, like is that quite representative of like all your friends as well, or did they watch it earlier?
I think we'd definitely seen it and seen snippets of it, and we'd certainly heard about it. And I wasn't naive to it. I knew that there were these videos, and I suppose that's maybe the other thing, like going down the local like video shop and whatnot. You'd see all the porn titles, and I knew about porn magazines and things like this. So I wasn't in any way sort of sheltered, but just accessing that content, as you say now, you can get all sorts, anything. Just a quick Google, you can have a, you can do the hide your searches and all that sort of stuff, which you just couldn't do and didn't do when I was like a teenager. So no, I would never. Definitely now I do, yeah. But it wasn't until I went to uni really, and then again having a wider circle of friends and having just doing those sorts of searches and looking for stuff. But again, I suppose we only did it in the context of what was sort of funny and have you seen this video, and that was it actually with that is it 3 Girls 1 Cup. That was that did the rounds. 2 Girls 1 Cup. I mean, that did the rounds when I was at uni, which again shows my age. But that was probably one of the most wild things I'd ever seen online. And again, that was shown to me by somebody else.
Yeah. So just 2 things quickly. So one on 2 Girls 1 Cup, I think that's loosely porn. I don't even know if I categorise that as porn.
It's fetish something or other.
It's not okay. But then the second thing is, fun fact: did you know that porn was filmed around Loughborough?
No.
Yeah. So basically,
I did not know that.
Yeah. So if you Google, I can't remember which scenes it is exactly, but if you Google like kilogram, it's called kilogram porn.
Right.
I've seen it before. You can see like it films in Loughborough College.
Right.
And they filmed I remember seeing quite a lot of scenes there.
College are branching out since I last went down there. Honestly.
Listen, the college needs to get their paper up. So obviously hitting up kilogram for some extra P's, but. Yeah, they so basically Becks and I used to go to uni in Loughborough, so they filmed this kilogram company filmed a couple scenes there. So
right,
so yeah, I remember seeing it once and I was like,
I recognise that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure I walked through that building like half the week to go to my English semester, but seminar.
But yeah, that's it. I never would have Googled that sort of stuff. It's only been as an adult and being a bit more, I suppose, a bit more open-minded about sex and things that I've thought to look for stuff specifically for myself or to watch with a partner and that really.
Yeah, I was quite young compared to you anyway. I was quite young when I looked at porn for the first time. I must have been about, I think I was about 13. I can't even remember the incident per se, but it's just something, it probably was, like you said, just kind of playground chatter. And just more curiosity than anything.
Yeah.
And these times, the internet was just starting to kind of get a bit more accessible and a bit more. It was just popping a bit more, basically. And yeah, I think it was about curiosity, and just kind of went on it. And then from then onwards, like almost 20 years onwards.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, exactly. And the rest, they say, is history.
I think the thing for me that meant I never really looked for porn was that I think as a young girl and young woman growing up, I suppose I've always felt, up until quite recently really, that porn isn't for me. Like porn is a men's thing, and porn is something that boys look at and men look at, and it's about a very male experience. And I guess that's exactly what you say. It's all about, when I'd looked at porn before, it was about coming on their face, it was about pounding really hard. Like that is not something that appeals to me when I think about what turns me on, the sex I kind of like. So I suppose for me it's always been quite a boys thing, and it's only been, I suppose, fairly recently that I've realised or seen at least that there is porn that is made for women by women as well, and has a much more, it's really different focus, and it's about shooting scenes that are involving acts that are about the woman's pleasure or about and a more womanly experience, and about focused as things that women want to see rather than as the porn that you kind of describe, which is that very typical kind of blowjob sort of experience.
Yeah, you can tell that some of the mainstream porns, so like your Kilograms, your Bang Bros, and your Blacked. I watch too much porn, to be fair. You can tell that I know too much about. But yeah, all the mainstream companies, you can tell that they're obviously kind of directed by guys because, like you say, the focus is on the guy and him doing the act of woman versus necessarily kind of a more kind of mutually beneficial kind of action. So yeah, it's all kind of like the guy coming in the girl's face. It's more, you don't see the guy doing oral on the girl that much anyway. You obviously see it a little bit, but it's more about the girl giving the guy oral. Yeah. And it's more how can I put it? It's more showing the male dominance in different guises rather than, more of an equal playing field, or even kind of like the female kind of being a bit more dominant, really. So the thing about that, I think, is it, like I said before, it paints a very kind of dangerous picture in terms of how guys, especially young guys, might see their role within kind of sex. And I know it sounds like hyperbolic, but I think you have to remember, and for me especially, because I've kind of, like I said, I first looked at porn like almost 20 years ago. Like, when you've been looking at that stuff for so long, there's going to be a point basically where you kind of start to no longer take this with a pinch of salt, but then you kind of take it as gospel. And I'm sure, and I don't know if you've got any examples, but like, I'm sure a lot of women have probably experienced it where they have probably felt like they are being or they feel like they're in a porn scene basically, because the guy is literally just acting out kind of what he might have seen on TV, really. So that to me is like that's the bit about porn which just it puts me on edge basically, because I think as you get older you kind of realise, like we said before, that it's all a bit of a facade to some degree. But a lot of people don't take it as a facade, and they take it as, you know, this is the truth and this is what sex is about.
Yeah,
really.
I've certainly been, I say, on the receiving end, and I don't say that lightly, but you know,
Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. But
no,
yeah.
it is funny because I've certainly have been in some situations where I feel like I'm just an accessory.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, the guy's just kind of going away, and I've personally speaking, I've been lucky enough that I haven't felt, you know, really unsafe, or it hasn't been especially violent. I'd more say it just isn't very sensitive. There wasn't any conversation about, what do you like? Would you like me to do this? It's very much, you know, this is what we are doing right now, and then just sort of getting a bit carried away with it and not actually asking me, am I enjoying it? Is this okay? What do you like? All of those sorts of questions that now I would think I'd like so key, and I just par for the course of having sex, that you actually almost have a conversation as you're doing it, which maybe sounds like, I don't know if that sounds weird or not, but for me it's about the communication, and you tend to have better sex when you're actually talking about what it is that you're doing as you're doing it, and asking all those questions that make sure you have a connection, that you're both enjoying it, rather than just, because I definitely have been having, you know, gone home after a night out, and maybe it's alcohol or maybe it's not knowing them very well or whatever, but the guy sort of, you know, bangs away and you're kind of like, oh God, really, is this? And it's not awful. He's not, it's just not very connected, and it isn't about me at all.
Yeah, like I say, I can't help but think, I'm not making excuses for us guys, but I can't help but think that that's just the way we've been ingrained. That's the way we've learnt about sex, is through porn. And it's obviously not right, but you definitely get to a point when you get older and you kind of realise that you have to take porn with a pinch of salt, and you realise that it's not about banging away, it's about mixing it up. At the very least, it's about mixing it up. And like you say, it's about communication and asking the girl what she likes. The one thing I would say about that actually is I always try and ask girls what they like, and conversely what they don't like. But you don't always necessarily kind of get that answer.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's part of it. I think is just the girl probably wants you to find out for yourself, which I think is fine. But at the same time, for me personally, I'm less about beating around the bush. I like what you like, or I like to know what you like, so I can do more of it.
Sure. I've got to say I agree with you as well, because it's all well and good to have this romantic idea of, oh, this man just knows what I like and it was this amazing experience.
It doesn't work like that, yeah.
But what other walk of life do you get exactly what you want by not saying what you want and what you
exactly.
like? Like, you have to communicate about it. Because I don't expect any man to be a mind reader, as romantic as it might lovely to be.
Yeah,
it's never going to happen.
So for me personally, like, just like, give me feedback. Like, I'm not going to be you know, disheartened if you tell me not to do something as much, or if I'm not doing it right. I kind of want to know, so I can do more of it and I can do it better, so that I'm kind of pleasing you. So like, I'm all for feedback. That's kind of like the first point, and then I suppose I can't remember what I was going to say for the second point, but
I think your point about feedback is really important. I think anybody, if they were asked, would be absolutely mortified if they thought, or if they knew the other person had gone away and said, like, that was crap afterwards. Like, I'd be so embarrassed to be thought of as like a really like shit shag. So I'd much rather ask, what do you like? What do you like to do? What do you want me to do? Is this okay? Have all of those questions, and then make sure I go away with like a 10 out of 10, like 5-star TripAdvisor review, then walk away with like, no, that was not, you know, there was nothing there. There was no connection. It was average. She said nothing. She did nothing. Like,
it's funny as part of the sex episode, like I was talking to you about before, like I was asking people for their their weirdest or their worst sexual experience, and a lot of the comments came from women, and a lot of those comments were one or two things really. So one was the guy had a small dick, and the second bit was he came quick.
Right.
So the problem for that really is the small dick. Well, the small dick one's obvious, right? Because the guy can't do anything about that.
That makes me feel a bit sad though, because I think like it's nothing you can do about how your body is, and like, people like what they like, whatever. If you're a size queen, then fair play to you, whatever.
Yeah.
But if a guy is not that well endowed, I do feel a bit bad, because he can also do loads of other stuff. There's nothing to say that having a smaller penis makes you a worse lover or a worse partner or anything like that. You can be an amazing lover but not be huge.
Exactly, but that's a sad thing. And then the coming quick thing was, I think feedback for that is quite important, because from a guy's perspective, this happens to me a couple of times where you just come quick for whatever reason, basically.
Yeah.
But also, I think the communication part is key, because, you to be honest, you feel like shit when it happens. Like, if the girl thinks that that's the worst sexual experience to them, like, I guarantee it's an even worse experience for the guy.
Yeah, sure.
And within sex, there's obviously more stuff they can do to please the woman, basically. But then also, there's more stuff that you can do to almost like negate the fact that a guy might come quick, and if anything, to build his confidence so that the next time it happens, he lasts a bit longer.
Yeah.
So I think that's why communication is, like you said, it's really important, because if anything, when someone doesn't perform, in this case, obviously the guy, which I'm talking about, communicating with him, reassuring him, whatever, basically, that really helps to make the sex. Helps to make the sex like better next time.
Yeah.
So
it can prolong it as well, I guess, because again, if you're honest about the fact that you can actually say, oh, I think I'm going to come, I don't want to come yet, so stop, slow down, do something else. You can please her for a bit and do what she wants. And I completely understand that you need her to be vocal about what she likes, so that you can do that for a bit and then go back, because otherwise I guess you do fall into that porn thing about, well, I'm going to come regardless. If she's not saying very much, if there's not much communication here, then I probably will just finish, and then that's that, and it's done, and then it's not very satisfying for either of you, probably.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know about porn. I really don't.
Do you think it's a bad it sounds like you have a quite negative opinion of it. Do you think it's bad like
no,
inherently?
I mean,
or?
Like I say, I've got a mixed relationship with it, because I think it's good in terms of, and I know this sounds like a weird thing to say, but it's good in terms of giving you the building blocks of what sex is about.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I would stress about porn, especially when you're younger, is to take those building blocks with a pinch of salt. So I think it's good in that sense, because it gives you like a really visual representation of what you're supposed to be doing during sex. Where it becomes a bit more negative is where it just promotes different stereotypes, and it becomes, like I say, like really hyperbolic. So the stereotypes that I think about in particular are things like, the harder you bang someone, like the more they enjoy it. The stereotype of all black guys having like massive dicks. I've got kind of like a mixed feeling about that. Obviously, it's a positive kind of like stereotype, but it's also kind of negative at the same time. And also, there's just a more general stereotype about big dicks being better as well. I think that's the main thing that I'm trying to get at. So, it's kind of mixed, and I'll be honest, like I still watch it to this day, but I don't really like watching it, to be honest. I watch it more out of boredom, as opposed to when I was younger. It's probably more just because I was just like a little horny teenager or whatever. But it's more kind of out of boredom. But I don't really, because I kind of know what it's about now. Like I'd like to not watch it, but it's quite, I'm not gonna lie, it's quite good for killing time.
It's a time killer.
I'm not even gonna front.
Got to fill those minutes somehow.
Especially in this day and age, like it's actually quite good for killing time, basically.
Definitely, it is.
So I think to answer your question, it's not a bad thing, but I just think you have to take it with a pinch of salt and understand that it's entertainment, like a film or like music, and not everything that they say in film and music is either accurate or if it's real. Yeah. And I think you have to kind of take the bits which, well, like I say, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, I think.
Yeah, sure. I think it's worth. I think it's actually worth people and anybody who watches porn, giving that feedback, whether it's on the site or whether it's even to the makers, because I think that's a way of making sure that when porn gets made, it is actually made for different tastes or to different, or a bit more sensitively, and not just that very classic kind of, you know, quick win of all banging away and they come on the face and that's your porn film made. It's about maybe asking people what it is they want to see. But it is, though, and it is, and it is funny when you watch it. But then, as you say, sometimes if it's watched by the wrong people or taken as being, oh, this is truth, this is about what sex is, then that can be a bit dangerous. But actually, I think there is loads. I think porn can be really positive, because I mean, at least it starts a conversation about sex and putting. And I think if porn was a bit more, if it was allowed to be a bit more mainstream, and if talking about sex was more mainstream and not something, you know, dirty that you search under a private Google search thing or whatever, and clearing your history and whatever afterwards, if we were talking about it a bit more out in the open, then that would be a way to make sure that porn is made in a way that is safe, that is more consensual, that is a bit more, that more mirrors and reflects what actually happens in life. But as you say, I think it is meant to be an entertainment. They're obviously not going to film a conversation about consent, because that isn't what the viewers are there to pay their money for, isn't it? Like,
they film some weird shit, to be fair. There's a lot more production value in porn than I think people give it credit for. But I almost compare. We'll kind of finish on 2 points, really, or I wanted to finish on 2 points. So the first thing is, like, porn is almost like hip hop to me, in terms of, I suppose, hip hop gets quite a negative reaction from people, because if you're kind of not like fully invested in it, it gets quite a negative reaction, because people just assume that it's just kind of swearing, and you say the N-word, and it's girls dancing in videos, money thrown everywhere, blah blah blah, and it's all this kind of materialistic, really verbose type of medium, basically. But you know, there are some forms of hip hop which are a bit more cultural and things like that, which I can't help but feel porn might like, maybe not exactly the same, but I feel like it's probably similar, in terms of it gets obviously quite a negative perception because it is what it is, I guess. But I'm sure there are some porn, I haven't seen them anyway, but there's probably some porn which is a bit more like tasteful, and it actually celebrates the act of sex, and especially like the female body, for example, rather than a lot of mainstream porn, which is just like we've been talking about.
I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure it's out there, and I'm pretty sure that I've seen some of it. But as you say, it's maybe not just that quick fix that you come up directly on your search engine. It is behind a paywall or something. But I think that content definitely is there for people. It must be there.
Like I say, I haven't seen it, but it must be there. And for that reason, I just think it's so easy to kind of discount it as like this really kind of disgusting art form, but you know, it's art at the end of the day. Like it's down to interpretation, and it's
some
subjective,
erotica really is like porn and erotica and all those sorts of things in between as well. You can have some stuff that is really artsy, and maybe then maybe that isn't what you necessarily like masturbate to in your bedroom kind of thing. But there is but porn, and the way that we see porn now is an offshoot of what used to be, like, you know, people used to do artworks, and what all the nude paintings, what all the nude sculptures are. People have always been fascinated by the naked form and sex and things like that. So what we watch now is just an offshoot of that, and it's maybe just got a bit. It's just maybe got a bit gone a bit west.
Yeah, it's like, got a hella west. Now.
Yeah.
The final thing that we covered is probably less cultural than the other point. Actually, is like, what types of porn do you watch when you do watch it?
Well, I suppose I do.
Like genres.
I don't. Well, again, I don't think I'm very artistic about it. But when I have searched before, I have searched for stuff that is made by women for women with a very female focus. So personally, I like hetero sort of stuff. But it's very much about the female pleasure. So there is more of the shots of, you know, going down on her. Some of it's like a bit more massagey as well. So it's a bit more of the build up and the touching rather than just straight into the, like, well, it is a bit. It's more of like that connection and more of a sensual, I guess, what they like the tagline that you search for is. So I suppose it's that sort of stuff. But then maybe I'm looking at it from a woman's point of view and how I like to be treated. But then again, I suppose it's but then also I think it's also just worth adding in that nobody is really polarized. You don't always want this. There's not only one type of sex that people like, depending on what mood you're in, depending on who you're with, and all this. There's people love all sorts of different types, and there isn't just because you happen to like sensual, romantic, doesn't mean that you don't like stuff that is a bit more
Don't like being
rough.
banged away.
Yeah, a bit more rough or a bit more kinky, a bit more whatever, depending.
You gotta mix up people.
But that's it, and I think that's just what's really important, as you say, to end on, is that not everyone likes one thing, even just in themselves. And so when we look at porn, it's just important to remember there are loads of different types out there, and maybe you can just search a bit, spend more time on those hashtags, like get that
you're
search
just encouraging
terms in.
people just to look at porn. Why not?
And why not? Exactly. But in a way, it is a safe way to have sex, especially at the moment in pandemic times. If you're home alone, just with yourself.
Bit of DIY.
Exactly, a bit of DIY.
Yeah, it's the safer option at the moment. So
It is indeed. Yeah.
keep space.
Keep
space.
Hand space.
Yeah, hand, space, and space. Let's protect the NHS and let's watch some porn, people.
Let's do it.
Thanks for watching 30 Years and Running. Please subscribe, comment, and share. See you next week. Peace.